There's a lot to talk about today. We are literally just hours away from the We Robot event Tesla's holding at Burbank in LA. They started sending out the tickets and invites, and they're going to open the doors at 5 p.m. Pacific time. The actual event itself will stream at 7 p.m. Folks who want to watch that, go onto my channel at Brighter with Herbert on YouTube. We're going to do a pre-show starting at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. Scott Walter, and Brian White from Future Oz and I are going to co-host this. All three of us are actually going to be on live on right there. Scott and I will actually be attending the event itself. And so, we're going to interview as many people as possible before it's like a red carpet before they walk in. But for today's topic, what I wanted to cover was just all the different possibilities that could happen. This is the biggest week possible for Tesla. I think many people agree that this is critical, but there's just so many things of how this could unfold. They could reveal the robotaxi, which is highly likely, but could they then reveal a robotaxi as a low-cost version of it that they would actually include pricing and delivery? I'm using a post by Randy Kirk. He kind of listed out a number of things that could actually be could actually move the stock, but more importantly, it would just create the excitement for Tesla. Could they reveal a lower cost vehicle that they actually have a product page and reservations open and people can reserve it, tens and thousands reservation? Could they, of course, offer a supervised robotaxi network at date announced and within 3 months or 6 months, something like that will happen? Will that be going live? Will they announce those kind of things? Could they announce a licensing of FSD? What about if it's two partners? What about any other kind of partnerships as well? And then of course, would you be able to get a ride on the fully automated vehicles taking you around the Warner Brother lot? Could you then see the vehicles and Optimus using Grok and you can communicate to them? And could there be way more than just Optimus and these robotaxis, but either more kinds of bots as well? And then just this morning, Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research dropped their robotaxi network. So now we're starting to see more and more of these institutional analysts dropping their robotaxi network. I really like Pierre's research, but basically he gave lots of potential options of what can happen. How can the robotaxi opportunity play out? Scenario one could be that Tesla never achieves unsupervised FSD, but there's like 5 different scenarios of what could happen on the way to actually a full robotaxi fleet deployed without needing a partnership with anybody and just going full on out. But there's 5 different ways that can split out. So let's talk about that. What are the different options of what can happen? Let's have fun. This is a giant event that's happening in hours from now. So let's just have a little bit more fun here. Welcome, Jeff and Scott.
Yeah, every time I say the word scale, you have to take a shot. I think that's...
Oh, you don't want me to start taking shots now, do you, Jeff?
Yeah. No, I think I think you laid it out well, Herbert. But I think we have to, if we go back up at like a 5,000 foot level, what Elon and Tesla have to do at this event is they have to tell the story about the system, the network that they're building, and what it means for society, what it means for their business, what it means for automobiles, like what it means at a high level. And then they've got to get a little bit more specific about, what are the steps to realizing this. And I think once they do that, I think that opens the door and it unlocks. So again, a lot of things that we've seen have been part of tweets or have been part of, earnings discussions, or one page we show a spy photo of the Tesla network app running. But they've got to stitch this thing together and really tell the story, because the analyst community, several of them, most of them, I should say, are morbidly confused to a point where, I mean, it's bizarre. I'm surprised that people pay for some of this research. I'm surprised, major firms pay for some of this research, because it's really bad. And quite frankly, it can be, your alpha, depending on how you use it. And you don't have to be like, quote unquote fanboy all in or whatever. You don't, I mean, there's there's probabilities on either side of the spectrum. But what you can't mistake is the system that Tesla is trying to build and the progress that they are making. The progress is measurable, and you can look at the system itself in isolation and say, wow, this is something that is really being built for scale. This is something that can scale economically. This is something that can scale from a volume perspective. And then when you look at what others are building, it feels a little bit more like prototype operations that are being pushed and scooted out the door. And, hey, let's get, a dozen of these out there. Let's get a couple hundred, cars out there, and let's start giving rides out. And like, let's see where it goes. Oh, the car cost $150,000 to make. We have to tear it down and then we have to remanufacture it. Or we have this partnership with this company, but it's 3 years later is when we're actually going to start producing with that company. And you really start digging into these things. You have to start with what what are the different systems and what are they building, and do they have the ability to scale? And what I believe Tesla has done is Tesla started with the production scale in mind. When I say production scale, I'm saying volume of rides delivered at a cost structure per ride delivered. They started with that as the thing that they're solving for, and they've been designing the engineering solution the whole time to meet that. And along the way of doing that, it's going to be a nonlinear. It's going to look like, well, why are they at level 2 when this company is at level 3? And you're going to get all those types of uh commentary, but you have to be able to do the analysis. You have to be capable of doing the analysis of, like, what are they building it, why are they doing it this way, and what does it mean at scale. And then I think the other key piece of this is you have to look at relative progress, because they are building this system on a platform. Like, we don't have generalized AI, 100, 1,000 GPU cluster baselines to measure. Like, we don't have historical baselines to look at. We don't know how fast this is going to go. I see people putting, numbers out there as there won't be a robotaxi network, and they put some year out there. I mean, I get it. You have to do that if you're doing a model. I get it. I just don't know how you pick the year. And uh and we don't know how fast this progress is going to be. We don't know what the impediments are going to be. But what you can look at is you can look at the rate of improvement, the relative rate of improvement, and you can take various points along that as they install additional training capacity and they bring that up. You can look at these things. So my short summary would be is we have to see the big picture of what Tesla's showing. Everything else beyond the big picture, is, to me, details. Like, what does the robotaxi look like? I think it's going to be futuristic looking. I think they're going to solve for things that we haven't even thought about in terms of usability. And you're going to see a real conversion from a conventional driven vehicle to a what a vehicle looks like without controls in it. Uh, and I think it's going to be a vehicle you want to be seen in. In terms of other detail, like these 20, this more affordable vehicles, I think they're going to show them when they're ready to be ordered. If they're not ready to be ordered and they're not ready to be built in lead time, I'm not sure they're going to show them. But these are all small details. The biggest unlock for Tesla's valuation is telling this story in a very succinct manner of what are they building, its ability to scale, and the relative progress and where they're at, and when they think that they're going to land this thing, with some level of detail. I think that's going to be the key unlock.
Yeah, no, I like what you just said there, Jeff. But you know me, right? We've had many conversations about this. All that matters, of course, is a robotaxi event. In fact, it's better if it's a We Robot, which is a robotic AI company. But if they did somehow, which I don't, wasn't ever believing that they will, but if they did reveal some sort of lower cost vehicles, some sort of path towards that, then that's a double whammy. That then becomes, this is both a car company that's about to blow up and hit the second wave sooner than later, plus it's now going to be robotaxi. But yeah, even if they don't do the more affordable vehicle, But as long as they lay out the robotaxi, that'll be great. Now, Scott, are you there? I wanted to ask you, now that they named it Robot and no longer referring to it as a robotaxi event, do you believe that there's going to be more than just an Optimus? Now, you and I have talked about this too. We don't think that a Optimus Gen 3 is ready to be revealed in October 8th, October 10th. And so they'll maybe show the second version. They're not going to reveal the third version quite yet. But why did they call it Robot? And if they don't show much about Optimus and it's just really about bots on wheels first, would you be disappointed, or what's your expectation there?
I'm keeping my expectations very low, just because in the past with a lot of Tesla events, everyone kind of gets way ahead of themselves, and then they're a little bit disappointed that Tesla didn't show this or that, which they thought they were predicting. So I would prefer to be absolutely proven wrong by saying that I don't think they're going to show Optimus, even though the title seems to indicate that they would. So Gen 3 is definitely not ready. It's kind of been on the record that it's not ready. So I'm not sure what you get by demonstrating the Gen 2 bot. And the other thing is it takes away, let's say, a little bit of the attention from the cyber cab, which I think is where you want it to be. And a lot of times when you talk about these events, Elon says we have an event for this particular thing, and we don't want to dilute it with too much. It doesn't mean they may not show us in the live stream what their roadmap is, that they may reveal a couple of things that are going to be underneath a tarp once again, for us to kind of figure out what it is. And they'll show a couple of different, maybe new form factors. And one of them, maybe it looks like an animal, a robot dog or something like that, because Ashok has sort of indicated that, it could be used for something like that. Maybe we look at some other kind of mobile platform, which would be like autonomous type of AGVs or AMRs that you have in a factory. Because if you think about it, all the ingredients that go into an AMR, Tesla builds them. Wheels, batteries, autonomous driving software, motors, all that stuff is in there. So they could make something like that if they see there's some kind of use case. Now that's more of a B2B kind of application as opposed to B2C. So that's a possibility. I'm tempering my expectations, assuming that it's really going to be about the cyber cab. And with the cyber cab, I think what we're really going to see is really just two things. From a software standpoint, we might get a glimpse at the app, and we may all get a chance to use the app within that confined field. And we may already have it on our phones. If you have an iOS, we just don't know it. So it's probably not on mine, because you all got an update about a week ago, and suddenly that part of the app will become active. And you'll be able to use it to see how that works. As far as any improvements in FSD, I just don't think you'll be able to notice any differences because it's just going to be a very geofenced area. So I expect there will be no edge cases. And probably the only person that may notice something is different is James Dalma, who will be there. And, he might be able to say, oh, it's really doing this really well or something like that, or seeing something a bit different. So I think the real focus is going to be the hardware. And as Jeff sort of indicated, what does the interior of a car look like when it's now driverless? And I would say on top of that, also the idea is that there is no owner, because a lot of things that are inside your car are designed around ownership, consoles, glove boxes, and stuff like that. Even the frunk, they're all kind of there because you as the owner want those things to put your stuff. And now that you don't need to have it locked away, you take away those constraints. Again, you take away the pedals, you take away the steering wheel. What's that going to look like? What is the enclosure going to look like when we go in? I think they're going to design it around really easy to get in and out of a car, because who in the audience feels like it's really easy to get in and out of their car? It's always a little bit of a struggle for everyone. So have they kind of solved that problem? So these are the things I'm be looking at really is more of what's going into the cyber cab. And remember, you do have robotaxis, which are all these other Tesla vehicles that I assume will be running around. And because they want to make sure it's a very busy environment, because if there's only a couple of cyber cabs and they're just kind of lonely going around, that's not impressive. So you need to make sure it's a very busy cityscape. And I also want to say hi to Randy, who I saw just joined, and I will be meeting him IRL tomorrow. And Jeff, your hand is up. I must have said something that provoked you.
Well, you provoked me too, so I'll go after Jeff.
Well, Herbert started provoking me by not inviting me to whatever broadcast he's doing.
What?
So just start there. I reeled off like 40 different people, and I'm not included. That's fine. I will be on site, by the way, if there's people, if you're going to the event and you see me, just stop by and say hi. But I want to, so I'm making a joke, Herbert. I just want to like this whole, like, how do we know that they can't have one or two Gen 3 Optimus ready to do a demo in terms of the expanded capability in the forum? Why do we think they can't have one or two of them?
Because I think a statement a couple of weeks ago that it was still in development and that the ARM was still kind of in a prototype phase. So I've been looking at enough of it, and I think it's still in the design phase. So I don't think they really have a prototype, and I don't think they want to reveal that prototype yet, because there's still a lot of refinement. So again, I'm tempering my expectations. I would love to be proven wrong. Okay.
You know, Scott, I mean, you want to temper your expectations. So today we're talking about all the different potential options that can come out. This is one of the biggest weeks for Tesla. Now, Scott, it was, Elon and Tesla that called it We Robot. They could have kept it as a robotaxi event. And it was Elon now saying that it's going to be one for the history books. And, okay, so he's the one hyping it up as much as he possibly can. And so for you to say, well, as long as it's just a robotaxi and you got this great car, that's enough for you. It's got to include
it's not necessarily enough for me. It has to be more. I just don't know what it's going to be beyond that. And the question is how much it is hardware they're going to show us, and how much of it is it just going to be a roadmap. The battery day, they weren't showing us any batteries. They were showing us a roadmap. They were showing us the form factors of new cars that it was going to go into. So it's going to be a question of how well they pull off the presentation, and of course, how much of the goods are really going to be there to show us. And I want to make sure I don't get my expectations so high that if they don't show the Gen 3, then I say, oh, this was a bust. They shouldn't have anything. But if they do have the Gen 2 bot going around there and doing some very impressive stuff, then suddenly it'll be, wow. I mean, now we extrapolate that onto Gen 3, and then we have an idea of sort of where they are. So I am hoping we get that update, because when was the last update we really had from Optimus? It's been quite a while. And it may be that they're holding it back, because they say, why put it in a video if we're going to show it live?
Remember that Milan Kovac said that he was going to drop a demo 2 weeks later, and then he did not do it.
And that was back in early August. And so that's well over 2 months ago.
I keep going back to this. If I could take my intro from this show and summarize it in 10 seconds, Tesla has to show the slope of the line of their deployment of robotaxi in both volume and profitability is going to crush the slope of the line of anybody else that's attempting to do this work today. Because if you look at the unit economics of what they're developing, and they basically push these prototype operations out the door, what Tesla's doing is, from a volume and an economic scale perspective, the slope of that line is meaningfully more steep than what anything else that anybody's developing. And if they can tell that story and they can connect the dots on that, and like I said, if they can release maybe the start of a supervised network where rides are starting, I think it's going to be a very successful event.
Okay, thank you, Omar, for coming. But I want to ask Randy, because I know he has to leave soon, that Randy, one of the reasons I put this space together was, all the different options that can happen on October 10th. What can happen? And there's a list of 13 that you posted on X that said if these things can happen, they might actually move the stock regardless, because there's just so many really positive catalysts possibly that can come out of this. Do you want to go down your list?
Oh, go down the whole list. Okay, so let's start with, I think it's along the lines of Jeff just talking about a minute. I'll start with that because it's similar. Number 4, actually, on my list is supervised robotaxi network announced, and within 3 months it starts. So I'm talking about things that will actually move the stock. If they say it's going to be 6 months or 9 months for supervised, I don't think it moves the stock. But if it's before the end of the year, I think that moves the stock. Almost as good as that would be an unsupervised robotaxi network live by July 1st. So if there's not going to be supervised, I'm saying it needs to be within 6 months. If it's within 6 months, it moves the stock. Better would be clarity, and I think this is what Jeff was saying, on what must be done to get the network going live. What regulations, what cities, what is the steps? What are the things? What are the things that need to be done? Kind of like that checklist we got a few weeks ago as to what was going to be announced during September and October for FSD. And then finally would be, if most of the US will go live, then is everything in place? So in other words, have they already been doing the work? Have they already been getting the regulations resolved in various cities or states? Have they already been getting, are they already doing testing? That's another one of my items on the list, actually, is that right now, at least maybe this would be number 12 on the list. Hopefully there's 25 or more vehicles right now that are actually being not driven, that are being tested, that don't have a steering wheel, don't have pedals, have maybe an employee in the car but not in the driver's seat, so that they're getting 100% of the real experience of what could go wrong, what is going right, how is it all working. So there's 5 of them. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, sure. I think that some of the you mentioned, of course, is like what you're doing is you're saying, if this happens, this is great. And then obviously there's an ideal scenario. My God, that's not going to happen. 3 of those things you just said are just way too far optimistic and very unlikely.
Well, you know me.
Yep, I know you.
So then my first 3, and I'm talking again about things that'll move the stock, not necessarily things that would be the best, as far as I'm personally concerned, but things that'll move the stock. And this is in the area of the Model 2.5, the hatchback, whatever we want to call it. If it is revealed with enough details, including the price and estimated delivery dates, that will move the stock. But even better, number 2 would be if there's a product page that's live and reservations are open. And even better to move the stock would be if the next morning tens of thousands of reservations are announced, or somehow we know that there's, we broke the web, broke the internet again. So that would be in the realm of the model, what I call the 2.5. I think that would move the stock if those things happen, but less than that, not so much. Obvious ones, I think everybody here has probably already talked about, would be any kind of a deal on FSD, or better would be 2 deals to license FSD would be obviously a very, very big deal. Number 10 on my list is any kind of a deal where there's a partnership with regard to robotaxi, where Hertz or Uber or Lyft or somebody else, even the Chinese companies, if any of the Chinese companies have made a deal, not just announced that they're working on a deal or working towards a deal, but if there's an actual deal and a date certain when the deal, or that the deal is done and that it's going to be rolled out as soon as. Let's see. Number 11 would be a reveal of the Model Y refresh and dates for various factories to start shipping. I heard Jeff say a minute ago he doesn't think that'll happen unless they're ready to start shipping like almost immediately. I agree 100%, because we don't want to Osborne the Model Y any more than we've already done. So I think unless it can be shipped within 30 days, I don't think that'll happen on Thursday. Number 12. 13, vehicles and Optimus. This is my number 1. This is the number, not only would it move the stock, but it'll make my heart beat. And that is that the vehicles and Optimus can converse like C-3PO. Being able to have a conversation with your car or with your robot and seeing that conversation take place would be just incredible. And better would be that Optimus performs certain tasks that show it is clearly better than any other bot on the market. And there you go. That's my list. And it's actually 14. I would never do 13, Herbert.
I'm glad that your heart is, you kind of alluded your heart's not beating right now, but hopefully it will beat when you see this event. Okay. Well, lots of this, but I think the list is good because it shows that even if just one of these things happen, it's enough to, raise eyebrows and make you think that things are going to be good. But let's get Omar here. We're talking about all the different ways, all the different options of what can happen on 1010, which is literally just hours away from now. There is beyond the list that you just heard from Randy, even that, now you're starting to see these institutional analysts, the latest with Pierre Farragut dropping their options of what could happen with the robotaxi network in the future. Just so many different pathways. I don't know if I guess we've already asked you this question so many times before, but what can happen on this date? But more likely, which ones are you most wanting to happen? Like just hoping that will be actually there, even though it's like unlikely.
Well, I mean, I don't think any of those things are probably going to happen. I don't think this is a press conference. I don't think this is the time to announce a deal. This is a design team event. They're going to show off a new vehicle that they're unveiling called the Cybercab. And according to the shareholder meeting, when they were doing Elon's comp and we voted on that, they said they're going to be giving demo rides, right? So for years, I've wondered, when am I going to take my first ride in a driverless Tesla? And now we have an answer. It's this week. Now, granted, it's going to be on a studio lot, not on a real public road, but baby steps. So, I mean, I think that alone, seeing the first vehicle that Tesla's designed without physical driving controls and actually sitting in it, actually experience it driving you around a sort of fake city, is the main course. Now we have also seen people from the Optimus team who have posted on LinkedIn that they've got something really exciting to show us. We've heard some whispers that the Optimus team is at Burbank setting something up. So who knows what they could have for us? The We Robot event title certainly is a hint, but I don't care what the price action is the next day. Okay, if that's your takeaway, I just have to laugh at people who are like, oh, is it going to go up or down? Or, people make this commentary. Sometimes it reminds me of like if you were a caveman and they invented fire and you were just hearing this commentary about it like, oh, I touched it and it hurt. I don't like this. And oh, I don't like red. I like blue. Blue's my favorite color. And people just totally not understanding the historical significance of this moment. I mean, driverless services are here. They are live in even Los Angeles if people are here in the event and want to try it out. I've got some Waymo invite codes. The regulatory questions, I think, have largely been answered. We've shown that we can actually deploy this technology safely and that it has a benefit. And I think Tesla is the company to scale it. If you look at how their technology works under the hood, there really is no contest. So I think they're going to present a vision here for the future of the company. This isn't a car company anymore. This has become an AI and robotics company. And you don't really see many other companies that are working on highlighting Optimus and the cabs working together, Optimus and the autonomous cars working together. With this type of solution where you essentially have robots automating every economically valuable task a human can do, it's a much bigger vision than even the other autonomous car companies. And I think that's probably what they're going to be spelling out for us at the event.
Nice. I love that. Whenever you do that, Omar, raise the kind of the thinking of what's happening here. Anybody want to respond to what he just said? Yeah, go ahead, Meta.
Yeah, I just want to clarify from this list that Randy provided earlier. We should temper a little bit that we know for a fact that there will be no driverless testing happening yet. If that was the case, there would have been a permit already, especially if it was being done in California or Texas, which is more likely where it would happen. There are a number of states that have enacted laws either the same as California or with slight modifications to the law that California passed. And those laws require reporting all throughout the state, anytime an intervention occurs, as soon as you make a vehicle that is intended to go to L4, what's really cool about having a new vehicle format is the robotaxi is not a Model 3 or a Model Y. Therefore, they could actually go region by region and only have the reporting requirement where those vehicles are present if they don't sell them en masse. That changes the equation of a phased rollout. Whereas if they were to, say, make a Model 3 able to drive remotely, there would be a reporting requirement that anywhere there's an intervention in that state, they would have to report it in pretty significant detail, including like the lat long location in California. Not all states are like that, but there's about 6 that are similar. And that's a huge disadvantage because then you tell all your competitors what are the difficult intersections before they've even deployed any hardware there.
Wait, Matt, you're saying that you don't believe that at this robotaxi event in a private lot that they are allowed to give robotaxi drives without a driver there, even if you've signed an ND, some sort of whatever, a waiver?
Well, Herbert, you wouldn't be allowed to admit the existence of such a thing, would you?
NDAs? Whatever
Robert,
happens to Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. Yeah.
I'm saying private lots are different. I'm talking about public roads, only public roads.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Larry?
I don't have much to add. It's not a private lot, right? So it is a private lot. So there's no reason why drives won't happen. But yeah, I don't have a lot of speculation about this. Just pleased the event is happening. I'm just unable to make it. It kills me. I'm trying to struggle to figure out how to make the launch that's coming on the 13th, almost certainly, from SpaceX, which is probably more exciting to me than even the launch on 10/10. So yeah, I don't have a lot to add. That's about it.
Just one thought from me, as has already probably been suggested. I will be in Burbank tomorrow or Thursday. I will be looking for parties. So DM me if you know where the pre-parties, the viewing parties, because I don't have a ticket, and the post parties are going to take place. And also, if you like the red, white, and blue circle around the picture that I've done, I will be happy to do that for you. If you send me a DM, and we will do the artwork for you to add the red, white, and blue attachment, which makes you stand out more on X.
All right. So I want to ask the question about, this Elon apparently, and I can't find it, and I can't remember what he said, but he said something like, when you see what we reveal, some people may not get it right away. How did you guys interpret what he said and what he meant by that?
Well, there's been many major product reveals from other companies of, products that have changed how we do everything that you didn't get it the first couple weeks or months or even the first year in, and then all of a sudden it happens. And I think CERN Basher, it's a good follow on X. I think he sent something out regarding some major product reveals and what was believed at the time, and what eventually happened. I can tell you from being on the ground floor of building out, the smartphone supply chain for Android, nobody thought between, some companies and their partners that it would be over 1 billion units per year. It massively eclipsed non-smartphones at the time. But there was all this added functionality that gave you power as a user going from a dumb phone to a smartphone. And so, how does this actually change society? How does this actually change how business is done? How does this connect various businesses? Do you have AIs working together now? I mean, this isn't really that far in the future. For example, even from a charging perspective, you can almost get AI going on either side of that relationship and start optimizing for that, for example, and with robotaxis. So, I mean, there's just, I think there's one of those things, Herbert, at the time. It depends how well the prospectus is articulated. This hasn't been a strong suit in the past, but I do believe, besides revealing the vehicle and like what the future is going to look like from a transportation perspective, they also have to reveal that slope of the line and really kind of put their, this is, by the way, this is something that Apple's done in the past too, of like, this is what we're building and this is what else is out there. And they show that. And they show, they take what's critical and what's important to users, and they show that. And they show like why you should buy our product versus others, or why you will fall in love with our product versus others. So I do think it's a product event. And to me, the product event's really got to show off the product, and it's got to show off the actual business plan behind it. And maybe others have to connect the dots on that, but they've got to do a really good job of doing that. And I think they land both of those. You're going to get retail excited, you're going to get analysts excited, but they're honestly really trying to show the future of transportation.
So yeah, does everybody here in the panel agree that this is a product event? I think that's the way you position it. That's the way Omar did as well. But the reason is, so typically the way Tesla does things is they just show you the feature, right? This actual Smart Summon goes out and it is going viral. Billions of worth of ad revenue is being shown because it's a feature that actually works, that people love and see. And the Cybertruck, same thing, right? They roll out a great product and let that do the speaking. We're going to show you what we can build, and that's what we're proud of. At the same time, Elon is now saying we are a robotics AI company. He's been saying those words for 6 months, a year now, and he's determined to change the company into a robotics AI company. He's going to show you. Is it the audience for this presentation just to show the products that they're revealing, or is it going to be we need to change the narrative of who Tesla is so that investors might understand this? Or do you think that doesn't matter? Who cares? And what matters is let me show you what we're about to do next. And that's how we're going to change the narrative.
Well, showing the business, showing the slope of that line in terms of this is how we scale economically and from a volume perspective with the Tesla approach to self-driving, and this is what others are doing. And I think when you put all the lines on the same chart and you show them, I think it's going to, the difference in slopes are going to be staggering. And this is what, I mean, if you're a real analyst, you're looking for time to break even, you're looking for time to certain profitability points, and you're looking at it. We may not be clear on like what the start and end date are. It's still one of these things where it's like I explained earlier, like we're doing something now that's not highly predictable in terms of its outcome, in terms of the approach we're doing to get to full autonomy. But to me, Herbert, this can't just be like show the shiny new object and give some rides and it's over it. They have to articulate like why are they betting the company on this? I mean, they've said it in some words at various points, but I think they've got to connect it. It could be like 3 slides and they can tell the whole story probably.
I think it is a shiny new object that is the primary focus, but this is not an object that exists without the services that are associated with it. So you don't need a cybercab if you're not going to offer rides. So I think one of the things that Elon has mentioned that we haven't talked about yet is that I believe this will be very heavily about the experience in the vehicle for the consumer of those rides. What's that experience going to be like? Lots of creature comforts and things inside the car that will make it fun, exciting, create a lot of PR about that experience. And then what, in fact, is going to happen for the 3 people that are involved in this? How's the consumer going to be doing this? How is the Randy Kirk and Jeff Lutz and Larry Goldberg, if they put their cars out into service, how is that going to work, and how does it make them money? And then finally, how does Tesla make money? And then the icing on the cake would be if they can tell us when. Unfortunately, I have to say bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. Yep. Anybody else want to answer the same question?
I'll just add. The approach that Tesla has taken, if you look at any kind of cost structure to offer any kind of product, there's fixed and there's variable cost. When Tesla starts, the proportion of cost that's variable versus the proportion of cost that is fixed is going to far outweigh anybody else who's tried to push out these smaller localized systems. And if they I think if they tell that story, you don't need to be like an expert in cost structure and unit economics to know that if you start variable, you could ramp that variable down much faster if you don't have this huge fixed overhead. And then you're not going to succumb to as many of the utilization plights that some of these other companies like Uber and Lyft to deal with surge pricing. I go back to that post from Omar of $24 to go 1.5 miles in a certain robotaxi, and anyway. So I think if they tell the story about the slope of their line and how they scale and profitability and volume, but they also show like we have a completely different approach. Like we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars per vehicle and very low volumes to start. Like we don't have this time to break even is going to be much shorter. And that to me tells me that they can get really disruptive on pricing really early. And they can do some things that I think are going to really like surprise and change the game, because again, they're going in with a cost structure that's really low on fixed and nominal on variable, and then they can drive that variable down the more Teslas they light up on the network. So it's a completely different approach to the business model.
It occurs to me that Tesla are clearly knowledgeable of the next releases. And what I mean by knowledgeable, I think they're actually tested the next releases of FSD. And I think they're feeling very confident about them. Go back to the predictions that they made last, I guess, earlier this month or last month, when they said what they would deliver before 1010. And they've delivered, pretty much exactly against their projections, very accurately. So it seems to me, and in working with determinative software, I know that we are always testing software, one release ahead of what we've released, and I'm guessing that's the same for them. So I think they're aware of where they are in the roadmap in terms of the release, and I think they must be feeling very confident. I think we may be getting a snapshot of that release in this event, and I think that's what gives me a lot of confidence, or that would give me a lot of confidence if that's the case, and we see the quality of the next releases, and we see this quantum leap as Elon has projected. So, if that's the case, I think that will have a very impactful result on the night. That's what I'm hoping.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.